appreciate having the opportunity to come out here and talk to you today. Just wanted to give you a little background on myself. I grew up in the Aiken area out towards New Ellington, and my father was a family doc in New Ellington for about 50 years. And anyway, I was blessed with the opportunity to come back here when I finished my training, and I've been practicing cardiology in Aiken since 2000, and I'm still practicing cardiology too. About 4 or 5 years ago, I started looking into obesity and obesity medicine. And I looked at my own practice in cardiology and saw that 80% of the people I saw in a 12-month time frame by their body mass index were classified as either overweight or obese. And then it kind of hit me that what I'm doing right now as a cardiologist is more or less patching holes, not fixing a whole lot of things. At the end of the day, most of our problems are coming from what we're putting on our plate. Not all of them, but a large majority of them are. And at the time, I was following the standard recommendations of diet, telling everybody, well, follow a low-fat diet. And I was doing the same thing. I was eating a lot of healthy grains, organic grains, all this stuff, and a lot of fruit. And not that those things are always bad for you, but I was eating too much of it. And anyway, when I got interested in obesity medicine, started going to conferences and diving deeper into diet and how it affects all these other issues that we have, these health issues and our cholesterol and so forth, I made a change for myself. And what I do now is I live a low carbohydrate lifestyle. I stay away from starches and sugar for the most part. And it was interesting. I didn't really have a weight problem, but I had some belly fat that I wanted to get rid of, and I couldn't get rid of it with exercise. And I was exercising sometimes twice a day. Didn't make a difference. And when I changed my diet and just started eating more, not worrying about the protein and the fat so much, but just concentrating on carbohydrates, in a 5-month period, I lost 5 inches of belly fat and actually was exercising a little less. I wasn't hungry, okay? And that equated to about 15 pounds. And the most interesting thing for me was, because I have high cholesterol, and I don't want to take a medicine. I don't have coronary artery disease, so I don't want to treat it. And my cholesterol fell from about 290 to 220, and that's eating eggs every day, okay? And my good cholesterol rose from about 40 to 60. And it really drove home the point to me that we've been advising people wrong about diet for multiple decades now. The new guidelines are going to be published this year, and they're better, but they're still not correct in my opinion. I think they're still too carbohydrate heavy, and but they have relaxed the recommendations on cholesterol. It used to be that we had recommendations for limiting cholesterol in your diet. Now, the cholesterol in your diet does not matter. Okay, you don't follow that anymore. The new guidelines do recommend minimizing refined sugar, but we know that. But they give you a arbitrary number on saturated fat, and there's no data really to support their number. It's just something they pulled out of a hat. And at the end of the day, saturated fat's not the bad thing. That's not the bad guy. It's the carbohydrates. So I'm going to go through some slides here, and then after I get done, it's not many, I'll be glad to take any questions, and I like to keep it real informal, and I'll do my best to answer them for you. So in 2013, obesity was finally recognized as a disease. 1 in 5 deaths in the United States is somehow related to obesity. How does it impact our society? Well, about 70% of folks in the United States are classified as overweight or obese by their BMI. So BMI over 25 is considered abnormal. BMI is not the best index of obesity. If, measuring body fat percentage is, you can take a guy that's a real muscular person that can have a high BMI and their body fat be 8%. Okay, they're not obese or overweight. It's just they have a lot of muscle mass. But the reason BMI is tracked for obesity demographics is because every doctor's office records it, and it's a function of height and weight. So that's the best. It's not the best way to determine obesity, but it's the best and easiest way to track it. Over a third of people in the United States are classified as obese, and that's a BMI of 30 or greater. What's it do to us financially as a country? Well, you can see these numbers here. $190 billion a year is spent on obesity-related illnesses. Medical costs per person are much higher for companies. There's more workers' comp costs involved, higher insurance premiums, and lost days in work, and something called presenteeism. Okay, that means you're at work but you're not productive. And one of the where do you see that? I mean, folks that have untreated sleep apnea is a prime example. Yeah, that's a primary, not always, but generally is due to weight, excess weight. And when sleep apnea is not treated, people are drowsy, they're slower mentally, they're not as productive at work, and a lot of times may fall asleep. Lack of exercise. Over half of Americans don't exercise, and that adds another significant amount of money to what we're spending on healthcare costs in this country. Next several slides, I think, drives home the point here. This is a map of the United States, 1998. The tan states here represent an obesity percentage of 20% or more, okay, in those states, okay? 5 years goes by, most of the country is tan, okay? So the majority of the country have obesity rates 20 to 24%. We've got a new color, orange, and 25% of the population, those states are obese. 4 years goes by. You see what's happening. Most of the or half of the country is in that 25 to 29% range. We've got another new color here. I like this color better since it's garnet. I'm Gamecock, but I don't like what it represents. That's over 30% obesity rate, and it's like Alabama, Mississippi leading the way there. You'll notice that Colorado's blue. It's often been referred to as the healthiest state. Their obesity rates are lower. I'm willing to bet in 10 years they're going to be leading the way with all the munchie problems they're going to be having. Okay, and this is 2010. So now you've got the majority of the Southeast, that garnet color here, that's over 30% obesity rates. Okay, so you see the trend. So for normal BMI, that's the light green. This 31% of the population, and this is 2010 data, were considered normal weight, and you've got 6% that are morbidly obese. Okay. How are we doing with our teens and children? Not so good either. And what you see here is in the 60s and 70s, fairly flat curve there. I mean, you're talking about 6-7% obesity rates in kids and teens, and then it jumps up in the 80s and 90s, and right now today's statistics, it's about 18%. Okay, is where it's hanging around. And why is that? There's multiple reasons that have a factor here. Number one, kids are staying indoors a lot more now. They're always doing this, looking down at some kind of device. They're not as active, playing sports. And a lot of it has to do with food guidelines that were published in the 70s. So you had the food pyramid. Everybody remembers that. It was heavy in grains and carbohydrates. You had refined sugar being put in a lot of foods. You had there was a lot of processed foods that people were buying that are convenient. They have bad fats in it, like palm oil, vegetable oil, and hydrogenated oil, which is trans fat. So you have all these convenience foods, high fructose corn syrup being put in products. Fat was vilified. It was bad, so fat's replaced with carbohydrates. And what you get as a result of this is the obesity epidemic we're dealing with now. The United States was leading the world in something up until last year, and that was obesity. Last year we were passed by our neighbors to the south, Mexico. So now we're number 2 in obesity. So do we have an obesity epidemic? I mean, I think it's clear. So we're literally digging our graves with our forks and spoons. So what are the medical complications of obesity? Obesity contributes or will directly cause just about every medical illness that we deal with. Every organ system is affected by it, okay? So we'll start up here at the head, stroke. It directly impacts stroke because obesity increases your risk for forming clots. It increases inflammation in blood vessels that can precede stroke. Indirectly, it affects the risk of stroke by directly causing type 2 diabetes, hypertension, and cholesterol problems. Same thing holds true for the heart, with heart attack, okay? Also, obesity can cause the heart to be enlarged and weak, which can lead to congestive heart failure. Obesity causes obstructive sleep apnea, causes restrictive lung disease, and 50%, obesity will increase your risk of atrial fibrillation by 50% as well. And atrial fibrillation is one of the most common things we see as cardiologists in folks over the age of 65. It's an irregular heart rhythm, and the biggest problem with that disease is it causes about 20% of all strokes. Liver disease, okay? Obesity is the #1 cause of elevated liver enzymes. A lot of the folks that are overweight and obese are on multiple medicines. You're getting blood work done every 6 to 12 months, and liver enzymes are moderately elevated. And well, it's probably one of your medicines. Well, it's probably not. It's due to the excess body fat. Could be a medicine because practically all medicines we take are processed through the liver, and when you have to take multiple meds, who knows how all that interferes with each other, right? But at the end of the day, the excess body fat does cause inflammation in the liver. That can lead to cirrhosis of the liver. The good news is, get rid of the body fat, you get rid of the liver disease. It gets better. Gallbladder disease, gallstones, kidney stones, all higher incidences of those problems with excess body weight. Multiple cancers. There's a significant increase in premenopausal breast cancer in women that are obese. Uterine cancer, renal cancer, which is cancer of the kidney. A lot of people have reflux, acid reflux. Chronic acid reflux can lead to inflammation of the esophagus and problems with increase your cancer risk of the esophagus. And obesity directly causes that. How about your bones? I mean, I know ladies in here that have had kids and been 9 months pregnant, walking around with all that excess body weight from being pregnant. The hips and the knees and the back and all that stuff hurts. Imagine carrying around 50 extra pounds every day for years. What it does to your skeleton. Your skeleton is not designed to carry that kind of weight. And so what happens is you have deterioration of your spine, particularly your low back, your hips, your knees, your feet. And what does that lead to? Leads to a lot of orthopedic procedures, leads to a lot of disability. And that affects us all, because when the cost of healthcare goes up, it trickles down to everybody. How about swelling in the legs? It's called venous stasis. You see a couple of my partners do vein work, and there's a lot of, over the last, 10 years, you see a lot of advertisements about having vein work done and all this. A lot of that's coming from carrying too much weight, because it's increasing the pressure down in the veins, and it makes them dilate and they become incompetent. And then you have fluid that basically collects in the lower legs, and the plasma leaches out into the soft tissue. It causes the swelling. So many times just weight loss will get rid of a lot of that problem. All right, so what's a healthy diet? Okay, I think a healthy diet primarily should be clean. And what's clean? Trying to eat organic. I think that's real important, okay? Trying to eat foods, if you're eating meats, eat meats that are from animals that aren't juiced up with steroids and antibiotics and all this kind of stuff. So I think that's the importance of the organic label, and again, avoiding pesticides and things like that. I mean, there are some foods that don't have to be organic. So if you're eating a cantaloupe or something like that, it's got a thick rind, or a watermelon, you're okay. I mean, the chemicals and all probably not going to get inside the fruit. But if you got berries and like blackberries, things like that, how can you wash all the chemicals out of that? You can't. So I think trying to eat organic is important, and I think you should avoid grains. Okay, and this is my opinion, and I'll explain that in a little more detail. But the body does not need to have any carbohydrates. A lot of people don't know that. Your body needs protein. We don't make protein. Your body needs certain fats. Okay, there are essential fatty acids we don't make. Okay, so why don't you need carbohydrates? Well, your liver makes all the carbohydrates you need through a process called gluconeogenesis, so we don't have to eat them. So that means that starches, bread, rice, potatoes, corn, pasta, all that kind of stuff, sugar, you don't need it, okay? So if you don't need it, why eat it, right? You can get all the nutrients you need, all the macronutrients, micronutrients, minerals, everything you need from a diet that includes meats, vegetables, eggs, dairy. And dairy means cheese and milk, not ice cream, okay? And that's not to say fruit's bad, okay? And nuts are fine, okay? But fruit's not bad. But I think you should limit your fruit. I think you should try to keep your general healthy diet, I think, should have a carbohydrate intake less than 100 grams a day, okay? And that's hard to do. I mean, if you count anything, don't count calories, count carbohydrates. You don't have to be hungry to lose body fat. Why is that? Cut your carbohydrates, your body changes gears, okay? Most people are running on a fuel called glucose. That's sugar, okay? The body fat is just stored sugar. What we do is we eat this high carbohydrate diet. Our body cannot burn all that fuel. We release insulin. The insulin takes the sugar, converts it to fat, and stores it. So we keep storing it. So we have to start using our stored fuel. Okay, and the only way to do that is to quit eating the carbohydrates. So if you want to lose weight, you want to keep your carbohydrate intake as low as possible. And to do that, while you're trying to lose weight, you avoid fruit too, okay? So if you keep your total carbs less than 50 grams a day, most of us are going to change our fuel source. And we're going to start burning the body fat, and the body converts the fat to a fuel source known as ketones, okay? It is not harmful to your body at all. It's nutritional ketosis, it's natural, okay? A lot of people get it confused with something called ketoacidosis, which is a problem that people with type 1 diabetes get, okay? And that's from a lack of insulin. The problem with most of us that are overweight or obese is we have too much insulin in our body. We become insulin resistant, and ultimately the excess body fat leads to type 2 diabetes. But if you want to get weight off, try to keep your total carbohydrate count less than 50 grams a day. Okay? And like I said, don't be hungry. You got to eat 3 times a day. Okay? Everybody needs to be eating 3 meals a day. And like I said, eggs are fine, and lean meats. Now, what about meats? I think that you ought to minimize the red meat, and try to eat preferably white meat, and try to get a couple servings of deep water fish in a week. We do blood work at our weight loss center where we check omega-3 fatty acid index on folks. And that's a reflection of how much omega-3 fatty acids you have in your body. And most of us are deficient. Okay, we don't eat enough omega-3 fatty acids, and the best source is dark fish. Okay, and you can get it from some nuts and seeds like chia seeds, things like that. You can get omega-3s from. But the best source is dark fish, okay? What about exercise, okay? We saw that over half Americans don't exercise enough. The recommendations are a minimum of 150 minutes a week. I mean, that's 20 minutes and some change a day. You know, the number one thing I hear from patients about why they don't exercise, anybody got a guess?
Time.
Right, time. But none of us have time to exercise. I mean, but we have time to sit down and do other things, whether it's watching 20 minutes of the news or 20 minutes of television or 30 minutes. We all can make time to exercise. And being healthy doesn't happen. You have to work at it, okay? It takes a commitment to living a healthy lifestyle, and that means being disciplined in how you're eating and also be disciplined in your exercise. And it doesn't take a lot of time. In fact, what do you think will be better, to go out and jog for 30 minutes or to run, say, wind sprints for 15? Wind sprints. It's not endurance necessarily as intensity. Intensity is better if you're doing intense exercise. If you only got 20 minutes, do intense exercise for 20 minutes. That gives you more bang for the buck than doing 45 minutes of going out and jogging around at a slow pace. So high intensity interval training is a better way. It's healthier for you to do that. And there's studies showing that it has more beneficial effects on the blood vessel health in your body than doing sustained endurance exercise. I'm also a big proponent of weight resistance training. You don't have to join a gym. You got all the weights you need, your body weight. You can do body weight exercises. There's all kinds of things you can do at home. And I think you should incorporate that at least 3 days a week. And that's a great way, if you do it right, you can get your aerobic training and your weight training in together, doing interval training at home. But why is that important? Well, you've all heard that saying, if you don't use it, you lose it. Well, it's true. When we hit our early 30s, we max our potential for our muscle mass. And after that, it's just a slow decline. And that muscle mass gets replaced by fat mass usually. If you want to keep your metabolism high, you want to keep your muscle mass optimal, okay? And you have to work every muscle group and maintain your muscle mass. You do that, you're going to keep a higher basal metabolic rate. It's going to help you maintain a healthy body weight. Plus, you're going to avoid work-related injuries, weekend warrior injuries, when you're out playing with the kids on the weekend or doing yard work. The last thing about exercise is I think it should incorporate some type of balance training too, whether it's yoga or Pilates or anything like that. And I used to think that was a domain for women, that guys didn't do yoga, And a few years ago, I started doing it, and I was humbled, seriously. I mean, it's hard. And it's interesting, I thought I had pretty good balance, but I found out pretty quick I didn't have any. And when you start doing it, you'll start noticing that your flexibility's improved, your balance is improved, and then if you go a couple months without doing it and get back into it, you notice a big difference. I believe that your neurologic system that aids in balance has to be exercised, just like your brain with reading or what have you, and your muscles. Everything has to be worked to be maintaining optimal health. And what do people do in their 70s and 80s all the time? They fall down, break hips, leaning over to pick something up, and next thing you know, they're in the hospital. And so much of that is due to just lack of exercise and lack of balance training and that sort of thing. Oh, and there's one other thing here: increase non-exercise energy expenditures. How you do that? You park at the other end of the parking lot. You take the stairs instead of the elevator. That sort of thing. This helps you burn a few more calories. So one of the things we do in our weight loss practice is we do see people fairly often, And when we're actively working on weight loss, we like for people to come in every couple of weeks. And the reason for that is accountability. In order to, and some people can do just fine losing weight on their own. A lot of people can't. And people that are on multiple medicines, particularly diabetics, they need medical supervision because we rapidly get people off of their medications, particularly their diabetic medicines, if they're sticking with the program. So you need supervision to make sure you're losing weight safely. And we also measure muscle mass. Once a month, we'll measure body fat and muscle mass with a special scale we have to make sure we're not losing muscle mass. When you're losing weight and changing your diet, you have to be careful that you want to make sure you're losing the fat, not the muscle, okay? So we do provide accountability for folks, and then we try to identify eating behaviors that are a problem. A lot of people have, I know for me, I'm a bored eater. If it's a, bad Saturday where weather's not good and you're in the house and watching a ball game, sometimes I find myself in the refrigerator for no reason. It's just there, and I'm opening it and looking for something. But a lot of us have different behaviors that contribute to our weight problems, and we try to help people develop alternatives to those behaviors so they don't have relapses and gain weight back. And so this is kind of what we do, medical bariatrics, supervised weight loss, and we use a combination usually of low carbohydrate, high protein, or moderate protein, moderate fat diets with or without meal replacements to help people get weight off and try to wean them off their medications as quickly as we can, and then try to provide that accountability for them long term to maintain their weight loss. Just quickly, what about surgical options for weight loss? Lap banding was the most common thing that was being done, but that's fallen out of favor. I don't know many people doing that at all anymore. There's like a 50% reoperation rate on lap bands. The gastric sleeve or sleeve gastrectomy is the most popular surgical procedure now, and that's this one right here, where a surgeon goes in and basically cuts out part of the stomach. And so it's a volume reduction surgery of the stomach. And that works pretty good. And none of this stuff works, by the way, if you're not committed to lifestyle change. Because everybody knows people that have procedures like this, and then 2 years, 3 years later, they've gained it all back. It's because they didn't commit to doing things a different way. And then the gastric bypass is still fairly commonly done. The one thing about sleeve gastrectomy that's nice is it doesn't alter your anatomy as far as rerouting things. And when they take out that particular part of the stomach, that's the area of the stomach that produces a hormone that really drives appetite. So it seems like a pretty good procedure for those folks that need to have something done. There are some people that need to have that kind of stuff done, but our goal is to help people get off their weight naturally, minimize medications, and help them learn how to maintain it. And this is one of our patients. He's let me tell his story. He was that's the same guy. It's photoshopped, And so before he started with us, that's him on the left there, where he's big. And he was on 3 diabetes medicines, 2 blood pressure medicines, and 2 cholesterol medicines. In the other picture, he was on none of those. And he lost about 80 pounds at that point. Hadn't got a new uniform yet either. But the cool thing was, I don't even know how much money he was spending on drugs. One of his diabetes medicines, I think, it was pretty expensive. I think it cost him about $100 a month, just that one. And the thing was, his sugar wasn't controlled. His hemoglobin A1C was 9, and his doctor was getting ready to put him on insulin. And when type 2 diabetics get put on insulin, well, they get bigger and bigger and bigger. but anyway, he's one of our success stories, and he's allowed me to talk about him. But this goes to show you what really change your diet and weight loss, what kind of impact it can have on blood pressure, diabetes, and your medication costs. So his quality of life did improve. But anyway, that's my dog and pony show. So I'll be glad to take any questions from anybody. Yes, ma'am.
You said deep water fish, and then you said dark fish.
Deep cold water fish. The deeper water's colder. They tend to be darker.
Like for example, what?
Tuna and salmon, things like that. We actually on the lab we do our blood work with. They send us back on that omega-3 index. They send us back a list of the different fish which have the higher omega-3s, but those tend to have the tuna and salmon are very high. Yeah.
What's your recommendations on taking omega-3 supplements?
If you're eating, one thing about these omega-3 supplements is you don't know what you're getting month to month always, because it's not, unless you're taking a prescription form of it. It's okay to do it. It's not going to hurt you. But I think it's better to get things naturally. So if you're eating a couple servings of fish a week, you probably don't need it. And I've made mine was not good, and I made a effort to eat tuna a couple times a week. And over the course of the last year, I've seen my omega-3 index improve a good bit just by doing that. So I don't take them. But it won't hurt you. So, yes, sir.
How important is drinking water, and how much do you recommend?
Water? Oh yeah, water is very important. We recommend at least a half gallon a day. And the other thing people ask about like diet drinks. There's some data out there showing some link, but it's not a cause and effect, kind of like with cholesterol medicines is it a cause and effect with type 2 diabetes? No. There's an association with some of the higher potency cholesterol medicines and type 2 diabetes, and likewise there's an association between increased risk of stroke and diet soda. So it's about a 10% increased risk shown in a couple other studies. So I think minimizing all that kind of stuff, particularly the sugar sweetened beverages, but the diet drinks, we usually tell people try to limit that to maybe one a day, but mostly drink water. Stay away from juices. Juices are, a lot of carbohydrates in juices. Now if you're getting juice from eating an orange or something, that's fine,
How much protein do you recommend per day?
For weight maintenance, protein recommendations are a milligram per kilogram of body weight. Okay, so can you eat too much protein? There's no data showing that you can eat too much protein. Now, if you want for weight loss, we generally shoot for about 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram for weight loss.
Can you translate that?
Kilogram?
150-pound person?
150 pound, well, let's see, so 70 kilograms would be about a 150 pound person. So for a 150 pound person,
105 grams, right?
well, yeah, if you're going to go for weight loss, but for weight maintenance, it'd be about, basically 75 grams of protein. But you can't eat too much protein. I don't know how much I eat a day. That's my primary nutrient.
Where do beans fit in?
Beans are fine. Beans are fine. There's a great app that a couple of them. One is that you can put on your phone or your iPad or tablet. The one we recommend a lot is something called Fat Secret, and it's a free app you can download. MyFitnessPal is another one, but You can enter any food you can imagine, and it will tell you the carbohydrates, the protein, the fat of that particular food, and you can track it and keep a weekly count of your carbohydrates, your protein, and your fat. But beans vary. You know, some have more protein than others. Some have more carbohydrates than others. But they're fine. I think they're, you know, you just have to keep it in context of the, like I said, if you count anything, count your total carbohydrates, and keep it in context of what your total carbohydrate intake goal is. But they're fine.
I heard some people, like on the Atkins diet, where they're eating a lot of protein, no carbs, that they can damage their kidneys. Is that not really true?
That's not true. No, sir. Now, when you go to when you change your diet, probably the most common thing we see when people are changing their diet and going to a very low carbohydrate diet, we see the first week or two, people will have some fatigue. That goes away. We'll see constipation. That may linger, but eventually that gets better, and there's things we tell people to do to try to help that. And of course, drinking more water helps. Headaches during that first week are common. They go away. But it's from you changing your metabolism. You're going from running on from running on sugar to running on ketones. It does not cause damage to your kidneys. In fact, we have some kidney dialysis patients that have been referred to us to help them lose weight so they could be candidates for kidney transplant. Again, I don't think you can have too much protein. Now, they're in certain, if somebody's got complete kidney failure, we do limit it a little bit. But if your kidneys are fine, you can't hurt yourself with protein. One thing you do see with weight loss, you can see and this is not uncommon when you have fluctuations in weight. You can see exacerbations of gout. You know, if you have a tendency to get gout, you can see a increase in like gallstone formation and kidney stone formation. So if you have a history of kidney stones and you're switching your diet, just be aware that that can increase your risk for a kidney stone. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
What about the protein powder? The whey, this whey?
Yeah, and whey protein is a milk protein, and that's fine. And it's fine to supplement with that. I do. And so it's okay to use that stuff. Whey protein and casein protein or milk proteins are very healthy. And there's data out there showing that those proteins, the milk proteins, may decrease your risk for developing type 2 diabetes and improve your body's use of its own insulin. Okay, and pea protein's okay too. The kind of protein I'd kind of stay away from is maybe soy protein. You know, as far as a supplement. Soy is what's called a phytoestrogen, so it can have some effect on your hormones, both men and women. So I kind of wouldn't supplement with soy protein powder.
A lot of those containers, it's like they're made for people who want to, like bulk up.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to bulk up, but you just want to, have healthy muscle,
yeah, it's
they
fine.
serve that purpose?
Yeah, they do. They do. And when you're buying one of those things, the key is to look at the label and make sure it's a low carbohydrate formulation. Because see, some of those things for these bodybuilders, they want a bunch of calories too, and there's a lot of carbohydrates in them as well. But there's several out there that are low carbohydrate, high protein supplements. And one that I use is something called Premier Protein. It's already mixed up in this liquid. And so sometimes for breakfast, instead of eating eggs, I'll take some plain Greek yogurt, like a cup of that, and one of those drinks, and some frozen berries, and put it in a blender and make a smoothie for a breakfast sometimes. It's high protein and a little bit of healthy carbohydrates and low and kind of moderate fat. So, yes, ma'am.
What about sugar
Substitutes?
Substitutes.
The best thing, in my opinion, is stevia. It's a natural sweetener as opposed to an artificial sweetener. So that's what I'd recommend. And there's more and more products that are coming available that are sweetened with stevia as opposed to some of these other things. Yes, ma'am?
How do you avoid the fatigue with the low carbs?
Oh, you don't.
Because I have that problem.
You don't. It goes away. You just have to weather it.
Okay.
Usually at about 2 weeks, most of it's gone. It's interesting. There was a study done in marathon runners where several were put on a very low carbohydrate diet, and their endurance was measured, through their exercise, and the ones on the low carbohydrate, or before and after, and at 1 month, their endurance was actually a little bit better on a low carbohydrate diet than on their regular diet. So yeah, all that stuff goes away. Any other questions?
What about fiber? So sometimes, right, I think they look for fiber, like colon kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, you can get fiber from a lot of other things other than grains, and so fiber, you can get it from fruit, you can get it from vegetables. I usually, that's where you're going to get most of it. And I also recommend people take things like Metamucil, that's a fiber, a psyllium fiber that stays in the colon, and a lot of the GI doctors recommend that too. It kind of helps you keep your colon healthy, and some people would actually, that kind of stuff lowers your cholesterol, for what it's worth.
Did you say 100 grams of carbs? That's a lot.
No, for weight maintenance.
Oh.
Yeah, for weight maintenance, I don't think anybody needs to have over 100 grams a day max. But for weight loss, less than 50. Okay, less than 50. And if you had most people track their carbohydrates, they're eating probably 250, 350 grams of carbohydrates a day. I mean, most people eat a ton more than 100. I mean, that's a lot. We actually had a nutritionist we saw that she thought she was eating pretty healthy too, and we had her just keep one day a track of her carbohydrates, and she was eating healthy carbs, but she had an intake of 300 grams of carbohydrates a day. Yes, ma'am.
Shouldn't you be tracking your net carbohydrate, not the total carbohydrate? Because if your carbohydrate is coming from fiber, then it
That's a
doesn't
good
really
question.
count because it will just go through you.
You have to watch the smoke and mirrors on a lot of these things that say so many net carbs. If it's fiber, if it's insoluble fiber, you can technically subtract that from the total carbohydrate because it's staying in the colon. Okay, some of these products will have sugar alcohols in them, and they'll count that as subtract that from your total carbs. You can't do that. Sugar alcohols you shouldn't. I think if you want to have a net carb, yeah, you can subtract the insoluble fiber, what stays in the colon from it, yeah. Anything else?
If you're only, go ahead. If you're only taking in 100 grams and you're running a little bit, you're going to need more like 3,000 calories, right?
It's not about calories.
Yeah, I know, but okay,
Don't-
I'm just
don't-
trying to get to my number here.
Don't worry about your calories. Nope.
An awful lot of protein, it would seem like, to get
You
to
just
that.
eat when you're hungry, and it's okay. I mean, you're obviously not don't have a weight problem,
No.
so if before I exercise, a lot of times I'll have a serving of fruit, maybe an hour before. That's okay, but I probably don't have more than 50, 60 grams of carbohydrates a day though. So, but like I said, it's not about calories; it's about carbohydrates. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I didn't have a question.
Oh, just.
So if I do eat more carbs and I work out more, is that okay?
Well.
Because I would rather not keep track of my carbohydrates and just work out.
Well, again, I don't think you need to worry about it. But yeah, I don't put them in a tracker and count them myself. I just eat I just don't eat bread, rice, potatoes, corn, and pasta, and I eat like one serving of fruit a day, and mostly vegetables and lean meats and that sort of thing. So.
Well, Dr. Eaves is on a tight schedule,
But-
and he's
okay.
going to be leaving in a few minutes, and we just want to Thank you so much for taking time out of your
Yeah.
busy day.
Well, thank y'all. I appreciate it.